First of all, let me see where I am. I am on clue 3 and we're at row 26. So first thing I want to do is see where I am. This is a knit 3, purl 3 row into the last 5 stitches, so that's easy to find. Knit, purl, knit, purl. One of the things whenever I'm doing patterns like this is I usually say the pattern in my head as I'm doing it to make sure that I stay in place. I will try to remember to put that in the notes on Patreon, but if I forget, sorry about that. I don't have a lot of time to knit today because I have to pick up my little 2 hours early because of weird weather. So, figured I would get a little project time in. Also, when you're doing a complicated project, it's really important to know how to read your knitting. That can make having to backtrack and fix things a lot less stressful than if you are not sure where you were and you can't tell by looking at it. Now I'm going to set my knitting down just for a second and actually make a note of those two things, because what's going to happen is I am going to totally forget if I don't do that. So okay, there we go. That is better. So I haven't picked up the shawl a lot lately, mostly because I've been working on lace because I had that class, and because it's something that requires me to look at directions a lot. And if my little is around, looking at directions is pretty much impossible. Oh, so there's another thing I wanted to share with everyone here. I think starting this week, starting with this post, I am going to try something a little different, and that means, and this is partially because these videos are going to be a little longer than they have been. I'm going to do these early release, so all patrons get to see me working live, and the post will go public a week from when it's originally filmed. Mostly because there's not a whole lot that goes on in these videos. I do exchange tips as I think of them, and of course, if anybody pops up, I'm happy to answer their questions as I see them. But these aren't a terribly long video or videos that have a lot going on in them. And so I don't feel like I'm cheating the people who get to see content sooner by letting other people see it as well. Formerly, these videos were 10 minutes or less, which is one of the reasons why I just decided I'm not going to share these publicly, because you just can't get a lot of knitting or crafting for a lot of things done in 10 minutes. And so it kind of looks like I'm doing nothing. And that seemed like a bummer to me. So You can also notice that I purl a particular way, and this is because it allows me to not have to move my hands off the needles when I switch between knit and purl. And I developed this while I was doing a lot of ribbing, I think. I got tired of having to move my hand, and I was like, there's got to be a better way. And so I just naturally started doing this. I don't know if this is a technique that exists elsewhere. I don't know how many other people do or do not do it. It just was a natural progression of me knitting. And I think that those are kind of the best little hacks, if you will, because they work with what you're doing, which is really neat. And so I'm doing 40 rows. Is that right? I think so. I'm doing 40 rows of this color. And then we'll move on to color 4, which I think it's a super dark blue. I'm not sure if it's a midnight blue or not, but I think of the colors that this is one of my favorites. So you can see it. It's a nice dark teal, which is my preference when it comes to teals. And also, I would love to hear from you in the comments on Patreon or wherever, whether you prefer this view where it is landscape, or you prefer a portrait view. Usually I do portrait, and I just try to keep really close to the camera. Okay, so I notice that there are 6 left. There's supposed to be 5, which means I made a mistake somewhere, and I thought I did. So we're gonna find it. So there are 3 knits, and you can tell it's knit because it's got a little V right there. Whereas these bumps are purls right here. So, and at first glance, they all look the same, right? It looks like there's bumps just all the way. Looks like there's bumps all the way across. And the thing with it is that if you pull the purl bumps away from the needle, they don't really move. You pull the bumps under the knit stitches, and they absolutely move. All right, so here it looks like here's the mistake right here, which is super good because that means I only have to go back this far. Now, because I'm towards the end, and because this is super far, I'm just going to tink, which is called, it's the word knit spelled backwards, because that is just easier for me. But I'm going to put my my thumb here, so I remember that this is how far I have to get. Actually, I put it here because this is the point where I have to undo. And when you are tinking backwards, you need to hold your yarn, or when you're tinking, you need to hold your yarn where it was when you formed the stitch. So for a knit, it's in the back, and for a purl, it's in the front. Let me put this here. And if you forget and you just take your time doing this, it's not really a big deal. Because you'll just make sure that you move your knitting back where it's supposed to be when you go and re-knit. Okay, so we'll double check to make this just sure this is where I'm supposed to be. Yep, we've got 3 knits and 2 purls, so we'll do 1 more purl and go back to where we were. Okay, so there we go. We're at the last 5 stitches, and I have to purl 2, knit 3. Okay, set that down for a minute, and what I'm going to do is make another note. I want to that is the 26th row. And so now I get to go and do the 27th. And we're probably going to do that and then stop. Just because I need to eat lunch before I leave. So as you can see, this is what the stitch pattern is looking like for the clue 3. So it's kind of like a basket weave pattern, but it's basically rectangles, which actually is kind of a more accurate basket weave pattern than squares sometimes, because I've definitely seen some weaving of baskets where the pieces are very, very long. This was clue number 2, which I didn't like at first, but I do like it a lot more now that I've seen it. And then this is clue number 1. So, make sure that the yarn is in the right place. We're going to go on to, first of all, make sure this is tight. Always, always, if you're using interchangeable, periodically tighten your needles. I'm lazy and I'm not getting the key to do it because I don't feel like it. But yeah, it's a good idea. The last thing you want is something to slip off your needles while you're in the middle of like a very long row or even round. It's just terrible. So the cool thing about this is all the right side, which is the side, right, and the odd rows are all super easy. You do your increase at the beginning, your decrease at the end, right, which is why you've got this nice little diagonal going on here. And then the rest are just knitting, which is fantastic. Oh no. It's funny, is right before I was, well, not right before, but a little earlier today, I was watching somebody else on Instagram Live actually doing a little bit of lettering, which was fun. And I kind of forgot that, you know what, people actually do like to watch people make stuff. Like, not everybody, but there's definitely a sect of people who like to watch something be made. And so I should not skimp on my project time, which has been a thing that I've done. It's like, oh, well, nobody cares. Nobody wants to watch me make stuff. But that's not true. There are absolutely people who don't want, I mean, you're here, right? So there's that. Even if you're just idly curious. And also, I'm super, super entertaining, and I'm basically like a cartoon character. And I'm really good at filling space and passing the time without saying or like so much that I sound like I don't know what I want to say. And whether there are people watching or not, I am just as comfortable either way. Some people are very self-conscious on camera. Fun fact, I don't actually like people looking at me. It irritates me. It's not so much that it makes me nervous, as it just agitates me, because I feel like if you're looking at me, you want, like, people are looking at me, they're either judging me or they're like trying to think of something to say. And so I'm just sitting in this like weird space of silence without words, and it's super annoying. And so I get really cranky and I have to hold back the desire to say, oh my God, what do you want? Stop looking at me. But on camera, you know, I'm on camera and I'm drawing attention to myself for a reason. I'm not just being gawked at like a piece of meat or a, I don't know, I was going to say something else and it went away. That's okay. But yeah, I'll just blame my Leo ascendant for that. My ability to get on with attention and like not crack under pressure, rise to the occasion. The reality is, and this is a little thing, if you have trouble being on camera, if you're worried about what people think, if it bothers you, or you're nervous, or you think you're going to sound stupid, first of all, video editing is your friend. Obviously, on a live stream, that's not really a thing. But, and I have a tip for that in a second, the reality is people are going to judge you almost instantly, no matter what you do. So if you're trying not to be judged, or you're afraid someone's going to judge you poorly, negatively, or criticize you, I mean, then you should probably go and hide under a rock. I've got to be honest with you. I'm not trying to be mean, but people are going to judge you. And so, you have no control over that. There's nothing you can do about it. And if somebody has a bias against you, or has decided that like something that you do is something they don't like, then it's not really about you, it's about them. And so, peeking at the male person, it doesn't matter, you know. And there are people who are not going to judge you. There are people who are going to be delighted and excited to see you. So show up for them, not for the people who are going to judge you and be mean and, call you names and poke fun at you. Because, yeah, screw them. Now, as far as live goes, here's a little secret. If you just keep going, people don't pay as much attention to it. Sure, we might snicker, oh yeah, they were but people are going, if you just continue on with like it's not a big deal, then it's not a big deal, and you don't make it a big deal. But if you stop and you stutter and you sputter and you turn red, which you of course may have no control over, and like make a big ta-da out of it, well then it is totally a big deal. So there's that. And here we are at the end of this row. This is the other reason why I haven't been working on this. I don't want to put it down. I have to eat lunch. I don't want to put it down. But I have to go get my child right after I eat lunch. And so putting it down is not like an option. So here you go. Now, it's been at this point about almost 18 minutes, right just now. And I've gotten 2 rows done. And I had already started one. So the first row, I was about yay far into it. And so that just kind of gives you an idea of how long stuff takes. This is 101 stitches. And I made a mistake, although the mistake was at the very end. So it was almost like I was making up for the time that I had already done, which I was also super naughty because I stopped in the middle of a row, which is kind of a big no-no. And now that I think about that, I also need to there we go. Yeah. If you're new here for some reason, you haven't seen this, I have a tendency to make notes while I'm doing video. Now, when I'm pre-recording something, I have the option to pause the video and then start right back where I was. So a lot of times I'll do that. And you'll just notice this slight little jump in the video. And that's what that is. Because I won't be in exactly the same position a lot of times as before. But that's okay. So here you go. But one of the things, and actually, I had a difference of opinion with someone about this, and I wanted to share it. So I'm going to be teaching a class in 4 days, provided we meet attendance. I haven't checked on the attendance since I last talked to the coordinator, but if we don't get the minimum attendance, then it will be canceled, which is no big deal. It happens. I'm not worried about it. But there'll be another one. So if you watch my social media, especially Instagram and Facebook, to see that. I haven't really posted on Twitter because I know a lot of people who aren't local on Twitter. Anyway, But one of the things about me is if I'm going to teach, if I'm going to tell you how to do something, if I'm going to help you, mentor you, or just give you advice, I'm very meticulous and detail oriented. And so if you tell me, hey, I'd like to start knitting, I'm not going to tell you it's hard because it's not hard. You know, there's 2 stitches, and every stitch pattern is, for the most part, a combination of a knit or a purl stitch. Now, there's a little interpretation when it comes to increases and decreases because you can knit through the front loop or back loop, and you can purl through the front loop or back loop. And of course, you can slip a stitch, which means it's not worked at all, and then you can pass stitches over, but at the baseline, it's still just knitting and purling. And most of the time, you're only working with 1 stitch at a time, no matter how many are on your needles, right? And the exception to that is when you're doing decreases because you're taking down the amount of stitches that you have. And so you have to work 2 or 3 at a time. But usually that's what you're doing. You're working 2 or 3 at a time. I'm not going to say that I haven't seen a quadruple decrease, but I don't think that I have. So, and that's a lot of that has to do with lace. So, you know, and you can knit and not make lace. Like this is not lace. This is lace, right? And this is lace because it's got holes, right? That's all that means. And like all lace is not created equal, right? This is big, fat, chunky lace with just a few holes. So anyway, I like people to have an honest view of how things are and what they're getting themselves into. Because if you know that you're the kind of person who maybe doesn't have a lot of staying power, you like to start things, but you really, really don't like to finish them, or you just struggle to finish them, or you get easily discouraged, which is totally fine. It takes all kinds of people, right, to make up the world. Then getting into something that's going to take a long time, you need to know that. It's important for you to understand and know that so that you can make an informed decision. And that's where I'm coming from with it. I'm not trying to scare you away by telling you that it took me 40 hours to make the last pair of socks that I made. I'm telling you that don't think you're going to get it done in 10 minutes or in 10 hours. And if you can't knit for more than like an hour a day, then expect your socks to probably take longer than a month to make. And that way you can plan accordingly. Maybe you want something done by a certain time. You can't meet that deadline. And let's just be realistic about it, right? So I like people to know what they're getting into and to be aware. And I'm also not the kind of person that if you tell me something is difficult, like you're not discouraging me at all. Like I don't care that it's difficult. Also, part of that reason is because I've probably done my homework and I know that it's going to take time, and I know that it's probably going to take more time than I think that it needs or than I think that I need, which is super not a big deal. But also, you know, when you don't know how to do something, it takes you a while to get the hang of it. Like I used to purl a completely different way, and now I don't because I found a way that works easier for me. And it took me knitting for years to figure that out. And the only reason I figured it out, honestly, is because I started doing a bunch of moss and seed stitch and garter rib and ribbing things where I switch between knits and pearls very frequently. And it sped up my knitting to not have to take my hands completely off and do this. And so there you go. And that was actually a complete accident, and it worked out. So yay! Anyway, so here we go. And I lied to you earlier. I don't have to do 40 rows. I have to do 30. There's a little note in the pattern that the size I'm doing, I'm going to stop at 30, and I just don't even know why I didn't think that was true. But I'm super excited. When I go to knit night, I'm going to take this with me. I'm probably going to work on it mostly because I want to go into the next color, and I'm super excited to go into the next color. The other thing is I need to buy more yarn, but I'm not going to buy more yarn for this until I get through the entirety of this. And so this is color number 3. The skein, actually, I can show you what it looks like. Oh, You see, the cat got a hold of that, so there will be no returning this. But this is what the scans look like. So it is 5 colors. This is the one that we're on right now. So this one is like a midnight blue, and this is kind of like, I guess, a navy. That's what it looks like to me, like a little bit of a faded navy. So that one is next, and then I have this one. And then when I go back to this one, I'm gonna have to get more yarn, probably. And it looks like, I think I've averaged, I don't know how many skeins I've needed. I think 6 skeins per, because I decided to be special and do my own damn thing and not follow directions, because I like to do that, because fucking special snowflake. So there you go. Thanks for joining me. I will see you next Thursday. I don't know what we're gonna work on. It might be this, which depends on how far I get tonight, plus how much I work on it in the meantime between now and next Thursday. Also, what I'm just really excited about, because I try to only work on stuff when I'm excited about it, because it makes it go by faster than if I just kind of don't want to do it. And if I'm avoiding doing it, there's a reason I'm avoiding doing it. So there's that. Yay! And just so you know, if you check out my Patreon, I will put the name of this pattern in it. I'll tell you the name of the yarn that I'm using. You'll be able to find all the information if you'd like to do this. This is for a knit along, but I am absolutely not following along at all, because I've got so many other things to do that, like, keeping up with other people is super difficult for me to do. So what I'm doing is I just started the shawl as soon as I got all the yarn I needed. So there you go. But I cannot wait till this thing is done. It is buttery soft. It is basically twice the size of it's twice the size that the pattern is saying it's supposed to be, but that's using stock weight, and this is bulky, which is not the fattest yarn, but like, depending on how versed in yarn you are, is like the second or third fattest yarn. But it's a little heavy. It's a smidge heavier than the yarn that comprises 90% of what you see when you go to a craft store like Michael's, or you check out the yarn store, the yarn section in Walmart, or you go to AC Moore or Joann's or whatever. So, which is called worsted weight, but sometimes also includes Aran. So yeah, that's it. All right, I'm gonna jump off here. I'm super excited that my phone has let me live stream this long. Thanks for joining. Hope you got some tips. If you have questions, don't forget to jump in the comment section below the Patreon video. I have been super bad about posting, and I do have to do a video / written reply to my last Ask Me Anything, but I do have a schedule. I do have things to share, and so stay tuned. And hey, remember, these are going to go up live the day of, and a week later they'll be public. So if you're into working, or you want to share this with people, or you want to say, hey, look, there's this human and they do the thing, then this is a good post to share, because it also gives you an insight into my personality, which is a little wacky. So, doodles!